Hey, what's going on? This is Nick LS, and today we're going to answer the question, what does maintenance look like for my Ninja 400? I want to start off by saying that the Ninja 400 is relatively easy to maintain. I've had mine for about a year now, and there's been no damage to it or anything destructive that I've had to repair. A lot of the things I've done are just typical routine maintenance, which we'll dig into. So I'll start out from the beginning of the season, springtime, all the way to the end of season, which is getting towards the end of fall. And then I'll talk about just maintenance that I have done personally. And I'll also go ahead and I'll page through the owner's manual and I'll give you the exact facts, what you need to know as far as maintenance. Alright, so winter's over, the grass is starting to get a little greener, so it's time to take out the Ninja. The very first thing that I did start of season was change the oil. Regardless of how many miles I had put on the bike with that oil, I always think it's a good idea to change out the oil after the bike has been sitting all winter. I personally will have 2,000 miles the next time I change my oil, which for me that works, but ultimately it's your preference on how often you want to change your oil. The manual does not specifically state how often, but I just do want to give a quick tip here, actually a huge pointer, when we're talking engine oil capacity. So the manual states that it is 2.1 US quarts when the filter is removed. That's a big piece right there. That might save you a trip to the motorcycle shop when you're buying your oil, because you're going to have to buy 3 quarts the very first time you change your oil instead of the 2, because when the filter is not removed, it is 1.7 quarts. So yeah, just getting that 3rd quart, and you can just hang on to that for the next riding season when you change, or whenever you change your oil. That way you're just going to have to buy the 2 quarts. So talking type of oil, the manual states you're going to use 10W40, and it also states that the Kawasaki brand performance oils have been specifically engineered for the Ninja 400, so that's what I went ahead and bought. It's a little bit more pricey, but it's totally worth it. So the total cost buying the 3 quarts and the filter is about $70-ish, because each quart of oil ran about $17, and then the filter was $20. So that's the price. I did it myself, so no labor cost. And then the actual oil change itself wasn't too bad. I do have spools and a stand, so I was able to put the Ninja up there and change it pretty easily. It took about a half an hour to do. After the change, and as well as periodically throughout just your time riding, it's also important to make sure that the engine oil level is correct, and you can view that by the oil level inspection window towards the bottom of the bike. By holding the bike upright, you can see the oil level needs to fall within a certain range. I know that was a lot of specifics, and maintenance is a lot of specifics, just making sure that your bike is safe to ride. So all of this is very important, I promise. That being said, let's move on to our next piece of maintenance, which is going to be checking the tire pressure on your motorcycle. This is important for overall riding and wear on the tire, and you can see what the tire needs to be filled up on the side of the tire. I usually fill it up while it's cold, and I'll fill it up right to the number it specifies. And I will usually check my tire pressure every week, usually every week. Most of the time, well, Saturdays are my big riding days, so usually on the Saturday morning is when I'll always check my tire pressure. The manual states that that should be a daily check, but I don't find that the tires are leaking consistently, and if they are, it's probably time for a new set of tires. So I guess talking about just other daily checks that I do, fuel, just making sure that you have enough fuel on the bike. We talked about engine oil and tires. I'm just reading straight down the manual at this point, just for daily checks. The drive chain. we'll talk more about that after we get through these checks. Making sure that all nuts and bolts are fastened, there's nothing loose. Talking about steering, making sure that it's action smooth but not loose from lock to lock, no binding of any control cables. Making sure that our brakes are all set. We're looking at the pad wear and the brake fluid level, and we're making sure that nothing is leaking. We're going to check the throttle, making sure that the throttle grip has nice free play. Clutch, we're going to see that the clutch lever has some free play and it operates smoothly. We're going to be checking coolant, making sure that there's nothing leaking, and the coolant level as well when the engine is cold. Oh, this is another big piece, checking the electronical equipment. So this includes pretty much all the lights and gauges. It's always a good idea to check all your blinkers before you ride, and just making sure that your brake lights work and your headlights and high beams work. It's important to be visible out there. Making sure that your engine stop switch works. That's important too. For whatever reason, if you need to kill the bike, you can. The side stand, just making sure that the springs in that work and that it's functional. And then your rear view mirrors. Sight is very important when riding a motorcycle, so just making sure that your mirrors are properly adjusted so you can see everything behind you. So I know I just rattled off a bunch of daily checks, and one of the things I had mentioned was the drive chain, and I said we'd come back to that. So that's your chain, and what we need to do for that is clean it and lube it. I usually do this after every time I wash my Ninja 400, and it's also a good idea to do it about every other week. You just don't want that chain to get rusty, and by lubing it, it's going to be a lot more smooth. Like I mentioned earlier, I do have a stand that I put my bike on, so it's super easy to do. It takes me all of 10-15 minutes. That stand is really helpful. If you don't have one, look into one. You can just rotate that back tire and spin the chain, and you can clean every single piece of that chain. So I had mentioned I like to clean the chain after I wash the bike. So let's talk about washing the bike. This is something that I do once a month. I always keep my bike covered. I have the Kawasaki official cover on my bike, and I never take it out in the rain. I only ride on nice days, so typically my bike doesn't get that dirty just because of the way that I ride. But when washing it, I like to avoid all electronical components and the engine. I use a pressure washer, and what I do is I just get like the paint, the plastics, the windshield, the windscreen, just a lot of the pieces that can't get harmed by water. And I'll just take a rag and just kind of wipe down all the other important pieces, not trying to get them soaked. I always use a microfiber clean cloth to wipe off that paint. I have the Pearl Blizzard white paint, so I want to make sure that sparkles and stays completely clean. So that's all the maintenance during riding season. But now it's coming to a close because the snow is going to be starting to come. So my Ninja 400 goes away for the winter. I make sure that the bike is all clean before I put it away. I'll go ahead and fill the tank about halfway full with premium fuel, and I'll also add in a fuel treatment into the tank. I also remove the battery, and then I will put the cover on it just in the garage or a shed, wherever you have, or a storage unit, wherever you want to put it for the winter. But I'll just throw that cover on there. And then I'll check on it from time to time during the winter, just making sure that everything's okay. Yes, so that is start of season to end of season, pretty much almost everything you need to know about maintenance. If you learned anything or enjoyed any part of this video, please go ahead and hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and please subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.